What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be reviewing the MSI GT72VR gaming notebook or laptop, whatever you want to call it. I hope you will enjoy. So to start things off, I think it's only fitting that we get all of the peeling out of the way. This laptop out of the box is simply stunning, comes with a nice brushed aluminium look and not too much going on. It's actually more of a simplistic look, which I really like about these laptops. Now, this is a gaming laptop. What does the word gaming do for this? Well, essentially, it is built for gaming. It has a desktop grade GTX 1070 inside of this little compact beast. So what exactly are the specs of this? Well, we have the Intel i7 6700HQ quad-core processor, and what makes that fantastic inside of a gaming laptop is I've actually been putting it through its paces over the last few weeks, rendering out 4K video files. My latest video on YouTube is actually rendered from this very laptop. So the rendering times were actually quite exceptional, considering that this is a laptop and they've packed so much punch inside of this small case. This laptop is VR ready and it is built specifically for gaming. We have a GTX 1070 desktop grade GPU inside, which is GDDR5 and has 8 GB of VRAM. The laptop comes stock with a 256 GB M.2 SSD, which has the Windows installed on it for really fast boot times, and it would be great to put all of your main programs on this M.2 SSD and keeping all of your games on the 1 TB hard drive, which is provided also within this laptop. We have 16 GB of DDR4 memory running at 2400 MHz. Of course, there is upgradability available. You can get up to 64 GB of memory inside of this system. So plenty of room to upgrade if you guys want an absolute beast of a system. Not that this isn't already a beast of a system. We do have Bigfoot Killer 1535 AC Wi-Fi, great Wi-Fi connection for those of you who do want to run this off Wi-Fi. And of course, we do have the Ethernet port at the back for those of you who want a cabled connection. And of course, we have the display panel itself. What is this capable of? It is a gaming laptop, so what could we expect? Well, MSI are delivering a 120 Hz monitor, and this monitor is built in with G-Sync. So yes, no 60 Hz cap in those games. You're going to be seeing a full 120 FPS while you are in those intense gaming sessions. Now, of course, being a gaming laptop, we do run into a few power issues. While testing this over the few weeks that I've had it, I have run into a bit of an issue regarding power due to the fact that we do have dedicated built-in graphics card and obviously that 120 Hz panel sucking up a lot of power. In my testing that I've done, I've ran into about 3 hours of battery life, which still is actually pretty good for a gaming laptop with a desktop grade graphics card inside. So really no complaints there, but if you are looking to use this over an extensive period of time with gaming without actually having it plugged in, then you will run into power issues after about 3 hours, give or take. So this model is actually built with the 7th gen CPU installed, and this one retails for $2,790 US. So for the lower gen models, so Gen 4, Gen 5, and Gen 6, you'll be looking at an even lower price, going down by about $150 increments, give or take. So the laptop weighs about 3.78 kilograms, and at the front, it is quite thin, but then when you bring it around to the back, this is where much of the bulk comes from it. This is 48 millimeters thick, but you can see it does need that room for venting out some of the heat at the back, which the CPU and GPU are exhausted from. Now, the intake is all on the back. This whole bottom section is dedicated to intaking air to cool all of the components inside. Now that being said, it is very open, so you guys need to be careful of dust and just clean it out every once in a while to try and keep it nice and open and so that the laptop can actually breathe. And speaking of that as well, you notice that it is on the bottom, so try and keep this off of blankets and carpet and stuff when you're actually gaming so that it can breathe nicely to keep all of those dedicated graphics and things like that inside. Very cool. Now you notice on the back as well, we do actually have a speaker inside built in. We also have some rubber feet, so that will keep it from slipping out of place. And we do have the little red accents all around the laptop, bringing out the whole MSI theme. Red and black, after all, is their main color scheme. On the right hand side of the laptop, we do have two USB 3 ports and a dedicated optical drive, which I'm glad that they implemented into this, because I know a lot of people still use their USB or download stuff online, but there are still people who are dedicated to, say, music production and things like that still need to use the CDs. So it's glad that they've brought these back in. A lot of manufacturers these days have actually started to discontinue the optical drives, but it's just something handy there to have depending on the type of use that you're going to be getting out of this laptop. On the left-hand side of the laptop, we do have microphone and headphone ports, as well as SPDIF optical out, which is really good for audio and music production, as I stated before, where people who are also not just into gaming can actually use this laptop with many uses. So I'm glad that they're including all of these extra features and thinking about the wider audience which would be interested in a laptop like this. And of course, we do have 4 more USB 3 ports. So while I do still have this 120 Hz panel open, I just wanted to show you guys a bit of the flex within it. It is a very flexible screen, something that a lot of you might not like, but definitely something worth mentioning in the video, just to show you guys what the flexibility is of this laptop. On the back, we have a USB Type-C, a display port, Ethernet port, and of course our power port. On the screen itself, I also think it's worth mentioning that we do have a 1080p camera, which is capable of 30 FPS. Okay, enough about the features and the inclusions. Let's actually move our attention to the keyboard, the trackpad, and we'll run this through some benchmarks and give you guys some pretty crazy numbers. First things first, let's actually do a boot timer. So I'll power this on, we'll start the timer, and once it hits that window screen, that's when we're going to stop the timer. Even though there is a bit of loading afterwards, you guys can still compare that against a desktop grade computer by stopping the timer at the same instance. So let's get that going. And remember, our Windows is on an M.2 SSD, so expect some fast numbers. All right, start the timer now. And there we have it, guys. That was one of the fastest booting laptops that I've actually ever had the privilege of working with. Such a fast boot time, and definitely well worth having the M.2 SSD installed, and also worth putting your programs on this M.2 SSD as well. So now that we are booted into Windows, I want to take you guys over a few of the different functions on this keyboard. So obviously, to start with, we do have the power button. Next button down, we have a button which can actually help you to save some of that battery life when you're not actually using the computer. One thing that I would do, and I was doing, was I was setting my video to render through Sony Vegas or Adobe Premiere, and then I would actually press the screen button, it turns the screen off, you save power. So that's one way of actually making this PC last a lot longer. Our next button down is actually more for cooling the CPU and GPU, and of course all of the internals a lot faster. Say you're in a game and you feel like your laptop's getting really hot and you really want the best cooling performance out of the laptop. Well, we have a button over here which ramps the fans up to 100%. Now, in that being said, that means you're going to be obviously generating more performance, but sacrificing in noise levels. So let's actually hear this and we'll see how loud it actually gets. In my opinion, it starts sounding like a jet. Just depends whether you want that or not. So straight off the bat, your laptop's going to be getting a lot cooler, but of course you have to sacrifice in the sound department. The next button down is a play button, and what this is it is macroed to opening by default XSplit Gamecaster. Now you can set this to use it with any other program. I'm going to hit it now and just show you guys what it does. It'll open up XSplit Gamecaster by itself by default, but definitely set it to whatever you want. So one press of a button and you can open whatever you like. And of course, the last key is the SteelSeries button. And basically what this does is it allows you to cycle through all of your profiles, which you can either use the default profile. So if I press this, it will change it around. As you can see, it's cycling through some red now, and it'll just keep fading to other colors. I could go to RGB. So we've got some blue, some green, and some red, and so on. So there's different profiles, but you can set your own profiles within the SteelSeries software, and you can cycle through them with one press of a button. Now, of course, we also do have a program which is built in called MSI Dragon Center. And what this does is it also allows you control over the LED functions for the keyboard. And we also have different fan profiles, which we can set 5 to be exact. And we also have control over our temperature. So we have a tab in here where we can monitor our temperatures and just different customizability within this program itself. So definitely one thing to check out. And within this app, we also have all of our main apps, which we will be using, such as the SteelSeries engine. And we've also got our XSplit Gamecaster and of course our GeForce Experience, which is needed for all of our drivers. So just a little peek inside, we are running at 39 degrees for our GPU, and our CPU is running at about 47 degrees to 50 degrees, and we'll see what happens when we ramp up this fan speed. So the CPU has dropped down about 2 degrees in maybe 20 seconds, and the GPU has also dropped down about 2 degrees, so not too bad. I'll certainly test it out in an actual game running the GPU and CPU both at 100%. So as I said before, the keyboard is made by SteelSeries. It is a really great key travel, and the keys feel really tactile, which is great, especially since I've been using this for about a week. I've been playing games, and it absolutely makes for a great experience in those FPS games. The keyboard features anti-ghosting and N-key rollover, meaning that when you press 2 or more keys simultaneously, both of the keys will register. What used to happen with older keyboards is if you press 2 keys at the same time, it'll register a different letter than to what you actually pressed, which could have been very annoying, especially when you're playing a game and you have, say, a key binding set. But that key binding is not going to work because you have 2 different keys creating a different letter. So it's really good that they have all of these features implemented into the keyboard itself. One thing also worth mentioning is that the keypad is made by Synaptics, which are really well known for making some really high quality keypads. And of course, we are finished with most of the features, guys. I'm pretty sure I've given you a great idea of what this whole laptop's about. So let's get into some performance benchmarks. Okay guys, so for our benchmarking, we've connected to the MSI Dragon Center app with our phone, so you'll be able to see our CPU fan RPM, the GPU fan RPM, you'll be able to see the GPU temperature and the CPU temperature. Right now, the GPU seems to be at about 40 degrees and the CPU is at 61 degrees. Keep in mind that I have had this laptop fired up in some games for the past half an hour to get it nice and hot. So these benchmarks will be ran. I'll be using 3D Mark. I'll be doing a Heaven benchmark, and I'll also be testing some games. And what I plan on doing is cycling between the fan to see if that actually makes a difference in the games as well. So let's get stuck into some 3D Mark to start off with and see how this compares with other gaming desktops or laptops on the market. So for our first benchmark, we're going to be running a Firestrike run. Keep in mind this is a 1080p panel, 120 Hz, and we do have G-Sync enabled. We also do have an FPS counter up the top left of the screen, in case you guys were interested in that. However, 3D Mark does have its own built-in FPS counter. So looking at this score, we scored a 12,314 with Firestrike. Now, actually doing this last night, I actually achieved a 13,000. So I'm not sure why it's lower this time, but the graphics score, you can see we already knew that that was going to be a pretty big score. We scored some 79 FPS, 68 in the graphics test too. Let's compare this online and see how it fares with the rest of the PCs out there. So we've got a gaming laptop and a gaming PC coming in respectively 10,850, 9,271. Now this is better than 80% of all results shown on here. This is at the higher end of the gaming laptops, which of course we expected. I obviously did not expect it to be beating a 4K gaming PC. Obviously with a GTX 1070 in there, it doesn't quite have the graphics power to push over this 17,000 mark. So quite a good score for a gaming laptop. Definitely at the higher end of all of the gaming laptops out there. Now, what was interesting is when we were showing the benchmark, the GPU and CPU seemed to hit about 75 to 80 degrees at their max temperature. Now, when I put the fan speed on 100%, that ramped it down by 10 degrees to around 70 degrees average. So definitely something to keep in mind. Okay, let's give Heaven Benchmark a go and see how we do. So I'm going to be running this on Ultra. I'm going to keep everything else stock as it is. It will be 1920 by 1080, and we might actually do one with anti-aliasing on after this run. So as you saw there, guys, the majority of that benchmark, the FPS was up in the 140 range. Now, the GPU and CPU temp did hit 80 degrees, but when I retested using the fan boost at 100%, we did drop the degrees on the GPU and the CPU both by 10 degrees. Now, of course, when we did run this with anti-aliasing at ×8, we did see a significant frame rate drop of about 20 to 30 frames, which is still well within reason considering 110 frames is definitely and almost at this laptop's limits of 120 Hertz. So basically what the anti-aliasing does is an image is made out of pixels. Now, horizontal pixels are perfect. They make for a smooth image, but now when you put them diagonal like a staircase, you notice that there are small triangles missing, just like a staircase. Now, what anti-aliasing does is it tries to fill in those triangle gaps which are missing to try and create a smoother image, which obviously requires more demand on the GPU. So considering that, it has definitely performed very well. So let's actually get into a few game benchmarks. Okay guys, so we've just loaded into Battlefield 1. We've got the FPS counter at the top left. We've also got our CPU and GPU temp on the phone. So keep an eye on those guys and we'll run through here and we'll see what FPS we can achieve within this game. So guys, as you could see there with Battlefield 1, we were at a constant 80 to 120 FPS. Quite good considering that we are on a gaming laptop. Okay guys, so now we're going to go on to Rainbow Six Siege and we're going to go through the benchmarking on ultra settings, very high texture, and high and ultra texture settings in general. So let's begin the benchmark. So our average FPS in the benchmark was around 118 to 119, obviously showing that this laptop is quite capable of the latest releases. So there you have it, guys. That is my review of the MSI GT72VR gaming laptop. Personally, I love the look, the design, and the feel of it, especially with the tactile keys, and obviously the performance that it's able to give for such a small, compact, and versatile machine that you are actually able to take with you away from your house. So this does come in at $2,790. However, I think that it's worth it, considering if you are the type of person who does travel a lot and wants to take your gaming experience with you, so you have something which is desktop grade quality to either render videos or play the latest releases in games. I hope you all enjoyed, guys. Remember to check out more videos on the channel. We've got lots of custom PCs, water cooling tutorials, reviews, and DIY modding tutorials. So make sure you check them out, guys. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next one.